But I'll tell you what, the Democratic Party needs his voice. And I'll tell you, speaking for John Samuelson, I know I want to see him in 2020. That I want to see him take on a national voice for the Democratic Party to talk about putting men and women to work, building infrastructure projects. I want to see him talk about the necessity for the trade union movement to propel working Americans into the middle class. The Democrats need him, and working Americans need him. Brothers and sisters, please welcome Governor Andrew Cuomo to the 2017 convention. Give him a warm welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. What a kind introduction, but I have to edit it. First, John was right about the conversation we had about some statements he made about parts of my anatomy. I would like to say that I'm the bigger man and I have forgotten about it, but I'm not. I'm half Sicilian, and Sicilians never, ever forget. On the Irish-Italian conflict, which is a real dynamic, I married an Irish woman, and I divorced an Irish woman. So I get that. Thank you very much for having me today. And let's give a big round of applause to John Samuelson. And I'm pleased and proud to be here. I want to start with a story about the farmer and the flood that I was thinking about on the way out here. There was a farmer who lived in the rural part of the county, and there had been rain for a number of days, and the rain was piling up. And the county officials get in this big truck, and they drive out in this big truck to the farmer who's out in the rural part, and they say to the farmer, you know, we have a lot of rain, but don't worry, we have a truck, we can take you and your goods to safety. And the farmer says, no, I'm a God-fearing man. I go to church every Sunday. The Lord will take care of it. They go back and forth a little bit, but the county officials leave. Sure enough, there's more rain. Now there's about 6 feet of water. County officials get in a boat. They go out to the farmhouse in a boat, and they say to the farmer, we told you, but don't worry, we have a boat. We can take you and your goods to safety, just let's get in the boat. And the farmer says, no, I'm a God-fearing man. I go to church every Sunday, the Lord will take care of it. And they said, I know, we had that conversation last time, but now it's getting serious. And they go back and forth, but the farmer is insistent he won't get in the boat. Next scene, continues to rain, the rivers swell, it's a real flood. The farmer is now standing on the top of his farmhouse. He's on the roof. And the water is up to the farmer's neck. And the waves are lapping at his mouth. Just his head is above the water, and he's looking up to the heavens. And as he's looking up to the heavens, he hears a big rumbling sound. And the clouds start to part. And he's looking up, and the rumbling, and it's a helicopter. And it's the county officials in a helicopter. And they throw down a rope. And they say to the farmer, grab the rope. And the farmer says, no, I'm a God-fearing man, the Lord will take care of me. They said, forget that, you said that. Just grab the rope, please. Won't grab the rope. Next scene, farmer's at the pearly gates. And he meets our Lord. And our Lord says, welcome to heaven. The farmer says, thank you. I guess it's better than the alternative. But the farmer says, you know, Lord, I'm confused. I went to church every Sunday. I was a God-fearing man. I said my prayers. Where were you? God looked at him and said, you're confused, I'm confused. I sent a truck, a boat, and a helicopter. What happened? I'm going to come back to that. The moment that we are in, as John was describing, is really a pivotal moment for this country. I believe it's the most difficult moment we've had in this country in 60 years. We've had divisions that we've never had before. We have cultural divisions, we have racial divisions, we have religious divisions, we have economic divisions. Now, some of which I believe are deliberately fomented for political purposes. Don't kid yourself, divide and conquer still works. Hatred and anger are easier to generate than love and compassion. But even if it's being politically used, the division starts with the economy. Because we have an economy that is fundamentally unfair. And the economy is polarizing. It's not a cliche. The rich have gotten richer. We have more millionaires and billionaires than ever before. The poor have gotten poorer. And the middle-class working families are getting squeezed harder than they ever have before. They are in an economic vice. The American dream, the American compact that said if you work hard, you will have a better life and your family will have a better life. That has all but disappeared. If wages for the middle class had risen as fast as the wages of the top earners, the average middle class income today would be $156,000. Just think about it. Instead, the median middle class income is $59,000. But it's actually worse than just about being about money, because there is a lack of respect and fairness to today's workers. And that is even worse. I got started in politics, I was 22 years old. I was campaign manager for my father, Mario Cuomo, who was running for governor. Why would a 22-year-old be campaign manager? Because my father didn't have a shot in hell. Nobody real would take the job. I was the son, I couldn't say no. We were from Queens, New York, Queens, Brooklyn, Bronx, Staten Island. They're called outer boroughs. They're the outer boroughs. You're from the outer boroughs. See this chip on my shoulder? That's because I'm from an outer borough. They never say what the inner boroughs are, but they let you know you're from an outer borough. The inner borough, that's never mentioned, is Manhattan. The rich people, the powerful people, they live in Manhattan. We were middle-class people. We were ethnic Italians. We had no Ivy League school. We had no polish. We had no credentials. We had no political support. But the one thing my father had going for him was he was the candidate of organized labor. And our whole campaign was labor. And the senior labor official at that time was Harry Van Arsdale. And he was organizing the campaign. He was head of Local 3, the electrical workers union. And he came to me and he said, "Kid, I'll tell you what I want you to do. I want you to run all around the state and organize all the labor unions." 22 years old. I was still in school. I said, "Mr. Van Arsdale, I don't know anything about labor unions, really." He said, "I'll tell you all you need to know, 2 words. The labor movement is about respect and fairness for the working men and women." And I've never forgotten those 2 words. Respect and fairness. That's what it's all about. And that's what it is still all about. Today it is worse than ever. As much as it's about the money, it's about the lack of respect and fairness. This economy disrespects the skill and the experience of the workforce. Workers are seen as batteries in a flashlight. They wear out, you get a new battery. They're just a replaceable commodity. It disrespects the blood, the sweat of the workforce. It disrespects the strength and the stamina. It disrespects that without you, there is no gaming. There is no transportation system. The buses, the trains, the airplanes, they don't move without you. They don't understand that operating understand that operating a train is like driving a 400-ton bullet with 500 people on board. Making sure the track is laid right, making sure the jet engines run, making thousands of flights, millions of people put their lives in your hands every day, and you deliver. A couple of weeks ago, I was with the TWU, and we were tracing the electrical system on the New York City subway system. And we were going from the Con Ed box, down to the switch panels, down to the relay room, down to the interlockings on the track. It was brain surgery. These are highly, highly complicated systems that happen to be decades old. And I have tremendous respect for the skill and knowledge that it takes to operate that system. It's a huge responsibility. And by the way, I've seen what happens when it goes bad. I've been at the accident scenes. When a mistake is made, people die. It's that simple. And that's the responsibility that you carry. And that's the charge that you carry, that I respect, and anyone who knows what you do should have the deepest and most profound respect for. And then there's fairness. When I talked to Harry Van Arsdale, a CEO made 34 times what a worker made. Today, a CEO makes 271 times what a worker makes. It's not fair that the middle-class workers can no longer afford to buy a home. It's not fair that health coverage, which is a basic necessity, is now treated as a luxury, a benefit that you have to negotiate for. It's not fair that middle-class families have to lose sleep about how they're going to pay college tuition for their kid. Or if their child goes to college, they come out with a mountain of debt that they carried for half their life. But let's be honest. The free market system and capitalism unchecked never promised fairness and respect. Management always seeks to maximize profit. The less they pay the worker, the more they make. That's their equation. And if they can get away with it, they will. The difference is that working men and women had a powerful friend on their side, a force that was the labor movement. And the labor movement levels the playing field. And the labor movement levels and equalizes the bargaining table. Maybe you can take advantage of one worker or two workers or three workers, but you can't take advantage of all the workers. Before we had unions, railroad owners used workers like slaves. Textile operators used women like a cog on a sewing machine. But unions brought livable wages, safe working conditions, and dignity into the workplace. They made it fair, and they built this nation's middle class in the meantime. Between 1948 and 1973, the union membership was growing in this country. Worker productivity and income increased hand in hand. Productivity went up 96%, and wages went up 91%. That's fair. After 1973, we saw a decline in the labor movement. Since 1973, workers' wages went up only 9%, while productivity went up 72%. That's the difference when the union movement declines in this country. And to make matters worse, there are powerful forces that are seeking to minimize the labor movement. There are powerful forces that now say labor activism is unpatriotic, it's un-American. Radicals are what they call now labor activists. There are cases before the Supreme Court where if they go the wrong way, the labor movement is going to be in serious trouble. the right to work case. There's a case that would stop public unions from collecting dues. Who finances these cases? The same CEOs and billionaires who think they still haven't had enough to eat. Now, the federal government is also on the assault. They're working overtime, rolling back union protections, decimating the Department of Labor, and demanding labor activists to file reports that are just a legal trap. So, my friends, this is the fight that we are in. It is a fight for fairness and respect. It's a fight for a fair share of the American pie. It's a fight that says workers deserve more than the crumbs from the corporate table, and they deserve more than the charity of management, and they shouldn't have to beg for a decent living. The good fight is what we must wage, but it's the good fight that we have always had to wage. It's a fight that my father waged, and it's part of the New York legacy. New York, I'm proud to say, is the home of the modern labor movement. It started with the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire. It was there when New York was the first state in the nation to establish the Department of Labor. New York was the first state to establish Labor Day 12 years before it became a holiday. It was the first state to see a mass strike of all women. They called it the strike of 20,000, a 3-month walkout of the apparel industry. And it is a fight that New York is proud to lead today. And that's why we are the most active state in the nation in protecting working men and women. That's why we were the first state. That's why we were the first state to pass the highest minimum wage in the country, $15, because if you work full-time, you shouldn't have to choose between paying the rent and buying food. That's why we passed the best paid family leave program in the nation, because you shouldn't have to choose between your job and caring for a loved one. That's why we have the most aggressive worker exploitation program in the United States of America. That's why we allow union members to deduct their dues from the state taxes in a law that we just passed. That's why my agenda is called the Middle Class Recovery Act. And we just signed a law that says for families up to $125,000 in income, New York State will provide free college for their children, because every child should have the right to a decent college education. That's why New York State has the highest union membership of any state in the United States, and we are proud of it. That's why we're investing in the middle class by creating good jobs, high-paying jobs, getting this nation back to work, building infrastructure, rebuilding our transportation system, which this nation has neglected for decades. We're building a new airport at LaGuardia, the first new airport in this country in 25 years. We're building a new JFK. We're building a new Penn Station. We're investing $30 billion into the MTA, $5 billion into the Long Island Railroad. And we're going to do whatever we have to do to get Amtrak to build that gateway tunnel between New York and New Jersey to go give us the pathway to the Northeast. And every project we build in the state of New York, we build proudly with union labor. And that's why in New York, we fight for economic justice and we fight for racial justice, because they are interconnected. They are both battles in the same war. New York has a different vision for this country. We are not about black or white, gay or straight, upstate or downstate, new immigrant or old immigrant. We are about black and white and brown and gay and straight and new immigrant and old immigrant. If this nation chooses to deport immigrants, then they're going to have to start with me, because I am an immigrant. And speaking about our federal government, which John brought up, actions, my friend, speak louder than words. Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands were ravaged by hurricanes. These are American citizens, remember, in Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. The president announced today that he'll visit Puerto Rico next Tuesday. It is 13 days since the hurricane. Now, during that period of time, he had to tweet and lecture the NFL players about patriotism and who shows patriotism. I'll tell you my definition of patriotism. That when an American is in need, you show up. That's my definition of patriotism. And that's why I am proud that in New York, the day after the hurricane, we were on the first flight to Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, bringing help, bringing the National Guard, bringing water, and bringing supplies. I am proud that New York is at the forefront of this fight for justice. But government can't do it alone. The combination that has always worked has been progressive government and strong union leadership. And the truth is that the union movement in this country needs more solidarity, more unity, and more strong leadership. And that's why I am here today. I flew 10 hours today. I'm not even walking into a casino, just to say to TWU, we need you, and we need you stronger than ever before. And we need you in partnership with government to turn this country around. The TWU has a history of progressive politics, inclusion, zero tolerance for discrimination, and an unrelenting drive for fairness and dignity. Martin Luther King, 1961, said, "The double-walled citadels of racial prejudice are what the TWU attacks." And that is pathetic that our nation did not begin decades ago what the TWU did and fight the real evil of discrimination. That's Martin Luther King about you, my brothers and sisters. The TWU has recognized before many that social injustice goes hand in hand with economic injustice, that racial discrimination and worker exploitation are two sides of the same coin. That is the lesson of Mike Quill. He was right then, and it's right today. At the end of the day, the effectiveness of organized labor comes down to one simple factor: the quality and the strength of the union leadership. Now, in my father's era, when I was a kid, we had giants in the labor movement. We had Victor Gottbaum from DC 37. We had Frank Drozak from the Seafarers, Harry Van Arsdale, Mike Quill. These were big, strong, tough guys. And John Samuelson is cut from the exact same cloth as they. Now, I can tell you, John is a tough son of a bitch. Because I've been on the other side of the table from him, and because I'm a tough son of a bitch. I've stood shoulder to shoulder with John in fights where the odds were long, but the man never blinked, and he never backed down, and he always found a way to win. John is the real deal. He combines courage and guts with brains and skill, and that is a winning combination. And John believes in the union movement in his heart. It is in his DNA. His father, Bunky Samuelson, was a lifelong union member. It's in his DNA the way it's in my DNA from my father. We don't know anything else. We can't live our lives in any other way. John is making the TWU not just a force for his own workers, but a force for progressive policy and workers' rights. If I'm in a foxhole, I want to be in a foxhole with John Samuelson. And my friends, we are in a foxhole because this is a fight, don't kid yourself. It's a fight for the soul of America, a fight to restore respect and fairness to the working men and women of this country, a fight to restore the middle class, the same middle class that labor created in the first place. And I believe in the capacity of organized labor. It changed lives for a generation. I believe in the TWU. I believe in John Samuelson. I believe in you. And it comes back to the farmer and the flood. I sent the truck, I sent the boat, I sent the helicopter. You have the opportunity. You have the resources. You have the personnel. You have the ability. You have the leadership. You have to step up and seize the opportunity for change. Remember who you are. Remember your strength. Remember that when organized labor pulls together, you can accomplish anything you want to. Remember the words of a great union organizer, Joe Hill, who said, if the workers take a notion, they can stop all the speeding trains. Every ship upon the ocean they can tie with mighty chains. Every wheel in creation, every mine and every mill, fleets and armies of the nation will at their command stand still. You have 116,000 members. You have the teaching and philosophy of Mike Quill. You have allies in the AFL-CIO. You have working families who are desperate for your help. You have the leadership of a true champion in John Samuelson. It is time, my brothers and sisters, to stand and fight for fairness, and to stand and fight for respect, and to stand and fight for the Langston Hughes dream of an America that never was. Stand and fight for economic justice. Stand and fight for social justice. Stand and fight for racial justice. And it is my honor to stand with you. Thank you, God bless you.